why is Ram spelled Rama and why is Mahabharat spelled Mahabharata, and why does Gurgaon has a R instead of a D, and why is there an H in Ghazal? It is not Ghazal, right? What is going on? Were the British idiots?
Thank you. मुझे लगा चैनल बंद करवाएगा ये. He went with Ram, Mahabharat, Gurgaon, all of the classics, and then ended with an Urdu word, Ghazal. But why?
Yes, so I mean, I used to think that, well, British were idiots and they didn't know how to spell things, and they didn't also want to learn.
Careful, we do have a British audience.
I used to think they're idiots, okay? For example,
He doesn't anymore.
Udagamandalam was too complex for them, so they made it Uti.
Oh yes.
Okay? Vadodara became Badoda because they couldn't be bothered.
To be fair to them, Udagamandalam, Badodara or Vadodara,
Thiruvananthapuram.
Tirunelveli, they are long words, man.
The point is, in the case of Rama, they were not being idiots. Okay, there is a really good reason for that.
Really?
Okay, and that has to do with Sanskrit pronunciations. Okay, so imagine that I write R and a M.
Okay.
One after the other, Devanagari.
In Devanagari script, Ro and Mo.
How would you pronounce it?
Ram.
Can you imagine any other pronunciation of that? You can't.
No.
Right? Because most modern North Indian languages, they shorten the end, right? Because really what I have written is a Rama. Why don't you call it Rama? Why are you calling it Ram?
Because that's how I have been taught to read words.
And because in Hindi and to some extent in Marathi and a whole bunch of other North Indian languages, that is what we do. The sound at the end is chopped off. It is that sound is called a Schwa.
Okay.
And what we are doing is Schwa Deletion or Schwa Syncope. Okay, we are chopping off the Schwa. But that is not true in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, if the word ends in a letter, you have to pronounce the whole letter.
Oh.
So it is Rama. It is not Ram. It is Rama.
Okay.
Rama.
Rama and Mahabharata.
Mahabharata. If you hear a Sanskrit scholar like Dr. Vivek Debroy, he says it like that, Mahabharata.
Oh, okay. This also kind of explains why in the southern languages, in some or most of the southern languages, my name ends with an A. It's Shrikanta and not Shrikant.
Because the Schwa deletion that North Indian languages made, most of the South Indian languages did not. So they get very uncomfortable when you drop the A.
Right.
And that's why that A is there at the end. And Marathi is somewhere halfway in between, right? The Marathi people won't like it when I say it, but they're half South Indian and half North Indian, right? So that's why Marathi, some words have the Schwa deletion and some words don't have the Schwa deletion. That's why, for example, there are names like Aarti. A Hindi speaker will say Aarti. A Marathi person will say Aarati.
Oh.
Mansi versus Manasi. And for the same reason, in Hindi you would say Har Har Mahadev. But in Marathi it is Har Har Mahadev.
That makes sense. And is that why all Sanskrit words should always end with this Schwa that you mentioned?
No. But the thing about Sanskrit is that when they want you to remove the Schwa, they will make it explicit.
Right? Like how?
Like if the leg of the last letter is broken, that's called a halant, by the way. So Suswagatam, right? The ma has a halant at the end. So that's how you know that you are supposed to pronounce it Suswagatam, not Suswagatama.
Right.
Right? And so Sanskrit makes it obvious, unlike these modern languages.
Correct. And South Indian languages also make this obvious because in Kannada, as far as I know, it is called a vat. Vat basically means pressed, which is basically you are ending the letter, ending the sound before completing it. The Schwa deletion then happens only at the end with these halants, is that it?
Not really. Okay. Schwa deletion in the middle of the words gives some really fascinating effects.
Like what?
So let's take the example of Dil Dhadakne Laga versus Dil Ki Dhadkan.
Ouch.
Write it out in Devanagari. They are the same.
They're exactly the
The
same.
kana,
Yeah.
except that if you mix up the pronunciations, the meaning changes. It'll just be very weird, right? You can't say dil dhadkane laga, or you can't say dil ki dhadk. You understand what I'm saying, right?
The habit is so strong that you can't even pronounce it wrong. That's how.
Right. I mean, the other example is just Devanagari,
Huh.
right? You said ha, but it is Devanagari. In Sanskrit, it is Devanagari, whereas if you say it in Hindi, it's Devanagari, right? So, and there are like a couple of shwas deleted in the...
The v and the g both have shwas deleted.
In Marathi, there is a famous example where there is a surname,
Huh.
Bhadkamkar, right? But if you do the Schwa deletions wrong, it suddenly becomes Bhadakmakar. And if you go and ask for Bhadakmakar and they know Bhadkamkar, they won't realize you're talking about the same person. They'll say he doesn't live here, go away. So let's talk about the other weirdnesses in our spellings, right?
Okay.
It always bothered me. Why is sadi written with an R? Why is it not SADI?
But don't we call it sari here in...
It is not sari, okay? That's just fancy English people who don't know how to pronounce things. It is clearly sadi. It is clearly Gurgaon. But the problem there is that it's a sound which is halfway between a R and a D. Okay, so the three different sounds. R,
R,
D,
D,
and D.
D. Oh, okay.
So it is not sadi.
Okay.
Sadi is wrong. It is sadi.
Sadi. Oh, sadi.
So this sound is halfway between an R and a D, and English is just doesn't have enough letters to capture this sound. So what are you going to do?
Okay.
You had to pick. You either pick a D on this side or you pick an R. You had to make half the people unhappy anyway. Right? The reason we get unhappy about it is because when we are taught in school, the D sound is taught to us as a D with a dot under it. Right?
Correct.
So that gives us the impression that this is just a variation of D. But it is not. It is a sound halfway between R and D.
Ah, okay. So it's not D with a dot, but it's D. D. D.
I mean, we could have called it a R with a dot and called it D, right? So then people would have been much happier with the spellings.
Fair point, fair point. So that explains the sari, sadi thing that you were talking about at the beginning, the Gurgaon thing you were talking about. But what about Ghazal? There is an H in Ghazal. Why isn't it Ghazal with a G only?
Correct. So first of all, it is not Ghazal. So we don't understand why it is spelled with a GH, right?
Okay.
Again, the problem there is that there is a third sound. It is neither G nor Gh. It is a G that you say from
The
your
base of your
pharynx,
throat.
right?
Yeah.
So it is sometimes called guttural, it is called pharyngeal, right? So it is, that sound doesn't exist in Devanagari, it doesn't exist in Indian languages, it has come to us from Persian, right? The Mughals brought it. So if you hear closely, you will hear they're saying Ghazal, right? And that's why, again, English is too lame to be able to capture that sound. So just to make sure that you don't pronounce it Ghazal like the unwashed masses, they put in a little H there to indicate that it's Ghazal.
Right?
And very similarly, there is a Q sound which is different from a K sound. Okay, have you ever wondered why Qutub Minar is written with a Q instead of K-U-T-U-B, Qutub Minar?
I never really wondered it, but
Because it is not K.
it's K.
It's K coming from in here, right? Again, similar pharyngeal sounds. Qutub Minar, not
Qutub. Okay, Qutub Minar.
Yeah. I mean, you know, but like Ghazal, why didn't they put just an H?
Qutub. No, because it's not.
KH would have meant something else. KH was already taken, so they couldn't use the H trick here. But it just so happened that there was an extra Q lying around, which they used for this purpose.
Look, Q is a very useful letter in Scrabble, okay? So don't diss Q. Risk Q. Sorry, bad joke. So that explains the H in Ghazal. Speaking of an extra H, the South Indians tend to use an extra H in some of their names, like Smitha.
So again, it is not Smitha. Okay? It is Smita even in South. Okay? It just spelt that way. And there is a good reason for that. It is not that South Indians are a little idiotic. Okay? So,
I never said that.
this is a story of 4 sounds. Okay? T, th, and th.
Correct.
Okay? North Indian languages have these 4 sounds.
Correct.
And in English, you have to sort of adjust just using a T and a H. Okay? How are you going to adjust 4 sounds with just 2 letters?
Good point.
So you have to compromise somewhere.
Correct.
The compromise we have chosen as North Indians is that we are not going to distinguish between T and Th, and we are not going to distinguish between Th and Th.
Right.
So when you write a T,
it could be either T or T.
And same thing with TH.
Correct.
South Indians had a better situation. Okay. They don't have 4 sounds. Okay. They have only 2 sounds. Okay.
Okay.
They have T and they have Th. They don't have the Th and Th sounds. Okay. In Tamil. So if you have only 2 sounds and you have 2 letters to use them, what are you going to do? Obviously, you'll use T for one of them and you'll use TH for the other one.
That explains it.
So they don't have the problems we have. Because they have fewer sounds, they're happy. When they see a T, it clearly means to them T. And when they see a TH, it clearly means a Th. So they don't understand why all these North Indian girls are named Smita.
Okay.
And why are you Shrikant?
Shri can't do anything about that, yaar. But listen, this thing about Tamil having fewer alphabets or sounds, I'm not sure, because Tamil has an extra sound or a couple of extra sounds in it.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying they're poor and they can't afford all these sounds, okay?
Again, I never said, stop. Channel band karwayega ye.
In fact, I don't know if you have ever seen Tamil spelt as Tamizh.
Tamizh, I have seen.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Oh yeah, the TH already we explained why it is really it should be TH and not just T. But the ZH, have you ever seen the ZH? And what the hell? I mean, ZH doesn't sound anywhere close to L.
I have a small idea of why ZH, but I don't want to take any risks.
So
no risks.
If you look, that ZH sound shows up in many different places, right? Yeah. Have you heard of the city Kozhikode? Kozhi.
I have heard of Calicut, which is spelled Kozhikode, but I'm sure it's not pronounced Kozhikode.
Exactly, right? The main problem there is the fact that Tamil has a sound.
That's the extra one.
An extra sound. It is not the of Marathi.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a different Tamil. Even I can't pronounce it. So Tamil people, please forgive me. Please. But
forgive him.
That already L is taken.
Yeah.
Right. And they needed some way to indicate that this is a sound.
So they chose Z.
ZH. Okay. Because tongue is twisted inside. Right. So the point is that the ZH, I mean, see, English has so few alphabets that what are you going to do? You don't have too much choice. You just have to do these weird things. Like the Spanish people use X for K sound. The problem they faced was that there's an sound which is different from L. So you can't use L for it.
Right.
And English is just so poor in alphabets that they don't have enough alphabets. What are you going to do? So then they had to pick something else. They picked ZH.
Okay. All the way to Z they went, yaar.
That's okay. But that's the point. It is a sound which we don't know, we can't pronounce, but it is a sound. Okay, that's where the ZH comes from.
Yeah. It's somewhere between L and R and Y, if I remember my...
Basically, put your tongue back like a R, but then don't touch it up. And you say
Yeah, Tamil.
Yeah, without touching it.
Tamil.
That's what I think it is.
We are really sorry. We've tried, but we can't get that pronunciation right. I know, and terribly sorry about it. We'll learn. We'll definitely learn, because here at FutureIQ, we are all about learning. Constant learning. That's the endeavor. So much Gyan this guy has given today.
So much Dnyan.
Dnyan.
This is another problem that as a person growing up in Maharashtra, I faced constantly, right? That Gyan in Hindi, the Nya sound.
Yeah, right? Gear sound.
The Gya sound Actually, Marathi people called it Dnya,
Right.
D-N-Y, Dnyaneshwar,
Correct.
right? And I couldn't understand. I mean, which is correct?
I have no idea.
Answer is neither of them is correct.
I knew that.
In Sanskrit, it is actually half j and half y. Okay, Jnya.
Oh.
Jnya.
Oh, that's why it's also written like J and then a bit.
Exactly. Not just that, but if you have ever seen Sanskrit scholars write the word yajna in English, it is Y-A-J-N-A, not Y-A-G-Y, yagya.
Oh, Yagya is Hindi, Yajna is Marathi, but Yajna.
Right? So there is a J there because really that's a J sound, yajna.
Yajna.
Jnyaneshwar, Gyan, right?
Jnyaneshwar.
But you try to pronounce it, it is really difficult to pronounce. Jnya,
Jnya.
right? So obviously Hindi Marathi people took the easy way out. They just changed the sound to something that's easier to pronounce. Unfortunately, they couldn't agree, and one of them picked Gya, the other picked Nya.
One of them picked Ri, the other picked Ru, and the actual sound in Sanskrit was R. If you don't know what we are talking about, the episode will line it up for you. There's a bonus, by the way. Leave all the Indian languages aside. Even within English, there is something that we Indians get terribly wrong, and that is the pronunciations of V and W.
Right. I mean, I never really understood why do they have two different letters for the same sound.
This is coming from the Indian understanding of languages, because in Indian languages there is only one sound. There is V. But the thing is, it's V or W. Which one is it? And English managed to separate those two sounds out into V, which is V, and W, which is W.
You're making the same sound again and again and pretending that they are different sounds, okay?
Bite your V's and kiss your W's.
Bite your V. So V, the V sound is V. Your lower lip is touching the upper tooth, right? V. Whereas the W sound is kissing. You're kissing your W. Water, right? So
I never thought it.
water falls on you, you get wet. But when your dog causes any problems, you go to the vet.
Yes. So it's wet who got wet.
You can't hear the difference between them. I can't hear the difference between them. But for Westerners, they are as different
as chalk and cheese. Yes. So whenever you go to the Western countries, make sure you bite your V's and kiss your W's.
And wear a vest in the West. And so, but to summarize, usually there is a good reason why the spelling of something might be funny, right? And if you dig deeper into it, you will find a fascinating story and you will learn something about the background of our languages and the fascinating history.
And if you are ready to learn more about our languages and the Devanagari script specifically, we'll line it up for you next. Shrikant, Naveen, FutureIQ.